Hi, welcome back to my Stories of Scale podcast, hosted by me, Jonathan Herps. In the podcast, I chat with business owners and CEOs of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies and themselves. Today, I'm speaking to Christopher Murray, who is CEO of RBO Technology. G'day, Chris, welcome.
Hey, Jonathan, a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining me. Hey, listen, let's just start if we can. Can you tell me a bit about your origin story? What are the moments that led up to where you are today? And also a bit about your business.
Yeah, if we start with RBO and then sort of go into the second part, RBO manufactures here in Australia long life commercial industrial batteries. And included in that business is also EJOS software, which is a 24/7 monitoring of all devices, and whether that includes gas turbines that we monitor, batteries on internet towers in the north of Canada, the railway signalling system in north of Western Australia, so two diverse extreme weather conditions. And we also monitor IoT devices in a building. So a smart building would be air quality down to 9 different things, solar systems down to panel level, batteries down to cell level, and that's 24/7 with alerts and monitoring. A super duper piece of software, and can be protocol agnostic and communicate with any device that's smart.
Great. And so how did you end up where you are here? Because
it's been a long journey. I started here in December last year. I relocated from sunny Sydney to Melbourne, and in the throes of enduring my first winter in Melbourne, which has been an interesting challenge personally. But it's actually a technology company that's just been recapitalised. Some external shareholders came in, and I was appointed CEO post their investment, and working through that, utilising a whole range of different skills and experiences in terms of the business. We're looking to 10x the business and then have the two different product sets.
Okay. So different product sets. So can you show me what are you currently working on to actually how are you going to take it from where you are to 10x it?
I've just finished the rebranding, which has been an exercise in itself, and also getting ready for refining our manufacturing process, and also getting in place contract manufacturers where we have a number of large orders that we're negotiating on, the ability to externally, outside our current manufacturing facility at Mitcham, is actually contract out to different parties that we can fulfill the orders.
Are you? I'm going to go off script a bit, if you don't mind. You mentioned that you're delivering in was it Canada? Are you being affected by the whole tariff regime?
Not at the current time. We've got batteries that we've exported to South Pacific, Canada, Asia. We've actually got no orders under negotiation. These are batteries in situ that we actually monitor. So through the EJOS software, we monitor and watch those batteries, how they perform, how they cycle, a range of different things. But no, at the current time, we're not affected by the potential purported tariffs. It's like, what's the decision du jour from Donald Trump?
Okay. I'm going to switch this a little bit now, if you don't mind, from the business to you personally. Can you tell me about your daily habits or routines? What does a typical day look like for you? And what habits do you credit for your success?
Jonathan, I think really daily routines are part of planning the next week on a Friday, and planning tomorrow the day before. So it's not a matter of wandering in and thinking, what am I going to do today? I've looked at the meetings I've got on, prepared a list of what I'm doing. I try and restrict myself to 5 key things I'm doing, and a 1 of 5 as a big thing. And it's really about what's the big thing I can do tomorrow to or this week to move things along. I think that old adage of chase too many rabbits and you don't catch any is so true. And I know as a business owner, you've got competing phone calls, you've got different things, but it's about being clear about what's the big thing tomorrow I want to do. And that's really been, and also being relentless and also resourcefulness. You recommended that book, Who Not How, and that's so true in terms of looking at doing new things. Who's going to do it? And unless you actually have that conversation, and it's an honest conversation in terms of internally, we're going to take on new products, we're going to do new things. That's great. So who's going to do that? Often a pause happens.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Chris. And just for the listeners, the book Chris referred to as Who Not How by Dan Sullivan, a really, really good grounding work. I was going to ask about, I will ask about, so you moved to Melbourne. I know you've got a grandson, I think it is, in Byron. How do you make that part of your personal life?
Yeah, daughter who lives up there. A grandson, he just turned 3 in February, and always find time to chat to them during the week. It's a 2-hour flight from Tullamarine directly into Ballina. Yeah, so that's very important. But I know one of the things we've often talked about is balancing personal life with work. And one of the things I try and do, or I have the thing set on my Apple iPhone, is actually turn my phone on to do not disturb. So after 6 o'clock is the only phone calls or texts I'll get notifications on is actually people in my favorites. And I try not to look at my work email after 6 p.m. I think actually taking that, you can spend your life watching your email or getting notifications, but it's actually turning off notifications and having your phone on do not disturb is actually the day's stopped.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And particularly given what you're doing, which is, a change of city and everything else, it can be, and you're there by yourself, it can be very easy to get, sucked into work 24/7.
Yep, absolutely.
So listen, biggest failures or challenges that you've had in your life. Can you share a time when you had a big challenge or a failure and what you learned from it and what you do differently?
Sure. I think probably for me personally, one of the things was the impact of the GFC, and initially thinking that it was off over in America, that's what happened, but the impact to the debt markets in Australia and people with funding lines that were in place, some of the private credit funds were funding a lot of property development. I was supplying the construction industry, and the impact of credit lines being withdrawn on particular clients and projects put on ice.
And how would you, we have recessions regularly. How would you handle things differently?
This was a recession on mega steroids.
Yep.
Projects that we had verbal commitment on, one 30-story building, several 5, 10-story buildings, all came to a grinding halt. And even I was up on the Gold Coast not so long ago, and I drove past one of the sites where we had the go-ahead, and the builder had started on site, starting the prelim works, is still a vacant block of land. So it's not a recession where things slow down. It's actually they came to a grinding halt. And like for people on listening to your podcast and different guests, is actually even COVID. As many of the people refer to the black swan event. Like, could you actually plan your business in the impact of what COVID had? I think 10% of businesses prospered during COVID, and when they prospered really well. There's a big portion of probably 30 or 40% who struggled, and the others, when you look in, Sydney CBD or different things, there are still many restaurants for lease, cafes in building foyers that were once thriving and bubbling along, people just mail back the keys. So the impost and the loss of people's, they may have borrowed to buy the business, all the fittings, all the different things, the old thing of jingle mail, they posted the keys back to the agent and said, thanks.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the week of the GFC hit. I was in London. We were looking to launch a company on the London AIM stock exchange, and needless to say, that didn't go very far.
Grinding halt.
Yeah, exactly right. So listen, tell me about, what do you reckon is the best piece of advice you've ever received that's made a significant impact on your life or business?
I think from an ex-chairman who I worked for, or worked with, he was very much, for every problem there is a solution. And the pushback on that was, you haven't worked hard enough to find that solution.
Yeah.
And if you've got a mind, that's very much a mindset. How do we navigate our way around the boulders or the water jump or the different things that life and business can put in front of you, and knowing that there is a potential solution, just having sort of broaden your peripheral vision enough to actually find the answer.
Yeah, that's a great one. And that relates strictly back to your point about who, not how.
Yep.
Finding the right who to help you solve the problem.
Absolutely. And, that comes back to resourcefulness.
Yes.
Someone out there has endured what you're enduring, or now, no, and I'll put the codicil on that. Nobody had experienced COVID, but it was sort of how people navigated and withdrew out of markets or repurposed their business, or the expression is overdone, is pivoted. You see restaurants doing takeaway. Catalina down at Rose Bay is offering cocktail packages. And that it was anything to keep the business going and keep the staff employed, in addition to the government handouts, was critical for how people survive.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I haven't told this story very, very often, but I love COVID. And
well, I know you did, because it changed your business, that you thought you had to be on the road.
Exactly
You're
right.
actually doing everything online.
And Chris knows I still do have a global client base, and but being able to spend quality time with my family, and by chance we just finished a house on the water, our holiday house. We moved there, and it was just, and then doing everything on Zoom, it actually worked. My business boomed, as it turns out, but that was just it was a personal one. But it's interesting that the best advice piece again. It's personally, whenever I have because Chris has got a finance background, whenever I have a finance issue, finance question, Chris is my go-to who. It's a great point. But what do you reckon has been your biggest learning as a CEO?
Learning not only as a CEO, but even in sales, and everybody, CEOs involved in sales as well. And that is that you can't sell anything to anyone unless you're solving pain. And you can get the customer to share with you the impact of the pain, personal or company. And in dealing with the issue, you can't sell them a solution. Someone can go out to tender and say, we want so many reams of paper or different things. But if you're in solution selling, you've actually got to find pain. And to get people to move and change, they've got to have pain and got to be able to see the result or the benefit of alleviating that pain.
Great. Yeah, really good point. Okay, I'm going to pivot a little bit again. Leadership teams. What do you reckon is the most important characteristic of a great leadership team?
My number one is that as a leader and people on the leadership team, is if there's wins, they don't stand up and take they don't want to be on the podium to get the medal, that they share it with their team or the people who work with them. That was the result we got. And I've seen too often people who, as managers, divisional managers, CEOs, it's all about me. I did this. No, you couldn't have done it without your team. and the impact of sharing that glory or giving that glory to someone else further down the organisation, they're organisations that do really well.
Yeah.
The other thing is admitting when you're wrong.
Yeah.
I had and I worked for a large American tech company as CEO in New Jersey, and we were in a car in Singapore going to a meeting, and he said to me, "I'm never wrong," and I, in true Chris Murray styles, sort of said that's a expletive lie, and he was taken back by it, and he said, "Oh, nobody else in my team would have actually said that." And of course, we've all been wrong. And he said, "Yes, you're right, but no one else would ever challenge me." And I just said, "That's sad." Anyway.
Well, it's interesting. Culture beats everything. And the culture comes from the top, doesn't it?
Well, the great management book, The Fish Rots from the Head.
Yeah.
The head of the business sets the culture. And I think that was no more exemplified with Alan Joyce and Qantas in terms of the things that came out with the trade union, with the way in which they treated people with the refunds on tickets, like customers trying to ring the Qantas phone line. They were there for 4 and 5 hours and then got hung up on.
Yeah, no, really valid point. I'm going to switch back a bit personally again. What resources or tools do you recommend? Books, podcasts, tools that in your role as CEO that have helped you?
I think, other than sort of listening to your podcast, Jonathan, and certainly congratulations on being the top 10 business and entrepreneurial podcasts in Australia, which is a great feat. And I know the time and effort and everything you put into producing these. But the thing is, I spend quite a number of hours driving either to meetings or my offices at Port Melbourne, got a manufacturing facility at Mitcham, and also going to client sites and using that time in the car to pre-program podcasts, audible books. Podcasts, I really enjoy the Diary of a CEO.
Yep.
He is one extraordinary young man. He is just fabulous. I've listened to his book, The 33 Laws of Business and Life, twice. And I'll probably listen to it a third time because of the benefit, the different perspective he has. And one of the things was leaning into technology. He cites several examples of record shops that were poo-pooing digital music. Those record shops aren't there anymore.
It's interesting, and I know you're a great reader because you and I have talked and shared books now for years. But I was listening to Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, just recently, and I don't have the advantage you do of I have a home office, and as you know, that's part of my balance for I like being here for the kids to come home from school. So I don't have the benefit of being hours in the car, listening to podcasts. So Nadella, and the other thing is there's so much to listen to these days. I suppose it's always been the case. But Satya Nadella is now using AI, ChatGPT, in his case, he gets his EA to download podcasts into the transcripts into ChatGPT. I think it's ChatGPT, but the one I would use would be Notebook LM, which is in this case, one of the Google products. Download the transcript and then get Google Notebook LM to actually record a summary of the entire podcast. And so, as part of his preparation for moving around and learning, he's got whatever tool he's using, giving a 5-minute summary of a 30 minute or 1 hour podcast, and he listens to 10 of those on the way to work. It's really clever how some of these things are happening, and once again another example of AI and how it can make you more efficient, speed things up, and the like.
Yeah. In terms of other podcasts, one of the other two I really quite enjoy are James Schramko.
Yep.
He has a variety of guest stories, different industry trends. I first met James personally, it was about 2001, 2002, and followed his career and been to a number of his events, but very much on the cutting edge of what's happening and being aware. The other one is Tim Ferriss. He has an eclectic range of guests and topics, and probably don't like as many ads, but his podcast is great. In terms of books, again, I mentioned the 33 Laws of Business and Life, Diary of a CEO. That's a fascinating book. Mastering the Rockefeller Habits in terms of processes and cadence of what you're doing. And another book I really enjoyed was The Alter Ego by Todd Herman. And he is a coach out of New York who's got a very impressive customer list, but it's actually how people can go into a moment. And for footballers, they often call it white line fever. You've got sort of giants of men being very soft, and they run across that line, and it's a persona change.
No, that's interesting. I'm just going to put a bit more information around a couple of those if I can, Chris. Rockefeller Habits by Vern Harnish. One of the great books for small business owners. Interesting enough, and Chris would know this, that I started my coaching business after I finished as the fourth time a CEO as a certified Rockefeller Habits scaling up coach. James Schramko, SCHRAMKO, so jamesschramko.com, I should say. He does a weekly 30-minute podcast, and interesting enough, he's one of my coaches at the moment, Chris. I always have one or two coaches to keep me sharp, and James is currently one of mine. And I forgot my name, the third book from New York. Oh no, the book from New York.
Oh, The Alter Ego by Todd Herman.
Okay. Thank you for that. So listen, any parting words of advice for business owners looking to grow? What's something for them particularly to focus on?
I would think being very mindful of the 80-20 principle. Perry Marshall wrote a great book, and in there was, in fact, I've bought multiple copies, which I've given it to people as gifts. And if you're actually going to have something as a gift or a thank you, a book is a great way to actually have a sample of different ones. But Perry Marshall talks about very much expands the 80-20 principle, that if you look at a business, 80% of the business is going to come from 20% of your clients. And it's a matter of being clinical about looking at your customer base and understanding how you can do more business with that customer base and what other additional products could you add. Also looking at the attributes of the clients who are in that top 20 and how are you going to get more of those type of clients. Obviously, there's issues of concentration risk, and the thing is to expand and be clear about who is your ideal client and be relentless in pursuing them. Also, with those clients, have an honest conversation about how you can improve your business, leave your happy ears at home, and in the words of Bart Simpson, let's be 100% Oprah honest.
Well, the 80-20 rule, totally agree. I've got a great tool to help with the 80-20 rule. If any of the listeners would like it, just ping me a message and I'll send it over. Yeah. James Schramko, interesting enough, he's got the concept of 64.
Yes.
64-4. So he doubles the 80-20 rule up, which is generating total focus.
Yeah. The stuff James puts out in terms of even the freemium products and the information is fabulous. I've actually been to a number of his events, and yeah, he is a very special individual, and it's very worthwhile following.
Yeah, agreed. Chris, thank you so much.
A pleasure.
I really appreciate you taking the time, and as always with all of these CEO interviews, I always pick up a couple of pearls personally as well. So I really appreciate your time.
Fabulous, Jonathan. Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.